Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, our coaches and our non-coaching visitors. Welcome to another webinar for Equestrian Coaches by Equestrian Coaches. I'm Jaco Fourie, and on the other side of, I'm in Kimberley, and on the other side of South Africa in Johannesburg is Regular News. And we have got a guest here tonight, Dr. Gerd Brunken, sitting in Germany at the moment. So a bit of international flavor tonight. Welcome everyone. Please, we encourage questions at all times, so you can just at any time put something in the chat and we will ask our host to answer. Or if you've got a question for me or Regular, then please feel free to ask questions. We haven't done webinars in a while now because we feel there's quite a couple of webinars going on in any case. And we would like to have these coaching webinars really for the coaches and keep bringing you meaningful content. And we've decided to bring international subject experts into these webinars now. And tonight we have a vet with vast experience. And he's sitting across the globe in Germany. And we will chat to him a little bit later. Now, some good news on the local front. SAF has allowed shows again under very strict regulations, but at least we can go to shows. And however, COVID is still very active with us, and I think we'll have to continue with all the precautions for the time being. I myself and my kids have tested positive for the coronavirus. I've been through my 14 days. Fortunately, I was not sick at all. Lost a bit of smell and slight headache. The kids had even less than that, so they were all fine. But yeah, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of COVID, and there is life after COVID. You can see I'm alive and kicking, and yeah, so if I can do it, for sure, you can do it. But please wear your mask and do everything the government tells us to do. If not for yourself, then at least for those vulnerable people out there. Now, to get going tonight, again, can I just ask everyone to please switch off their cameras and their microphones? And if you want to ask questions, then please make use of the chat function. It's at the bottom. If you click on it, you can just ask a question, and either Regular or me will see it, and we will attend to it. Now, can we start with a poll for tonight? So I'm going to ask Regular to just bring up the questions, and if you can all just quickly answer this. The poll for tonight, question number 1, are you a coach? Just a quick yes or no. Number 2, is the vet currently part of your performance team? As in, is he regularly there to help and assist? Yes, no, or only for some of my clients? And then our third question, when buying horses, how likely are you to take the vet report only in a pre-purchase exam? In other words, do you only listen to what the vet has to say? Are you highly likely to listen only to the vet? Are you likely to do it? Are you probably, depending on the findings? And if you just scroll down a bit, you can get to more options. And it says, I use a mixture of vet and other experts, or as a final one, I draw my own conclusions based on the findings. That's when buying horses. So if you can all just quickly click on the 3 questions, and I'll share the poll results with you. So here's the results. So are you a coach? 75% of the people here tonight are coaches. 25% are not coaches. Is the vet currently part of your performance team? 63% yes. 21% only for some of my clients. And then no, 17%. How likely are you to take the vet report only in a pre-purchase exam? A quarter of the people say only the vet. And another 29% likely. And then it goes down, 13% for probably, but depending on the findings. 25%, another quarter says they use a mixture of the vet and other experts. And then 8% of the coaches draw their own conclusions. They don't believe in vets. So let's see if Dr. Brunken tonight can maybe shed some light on why it is important for all these things. So welcome, Dr. Brunken. Regular, if you can just maybe unmute him there. Dr. Brunken is a private veterinary practitioner in Germany, but he's a specialist in equine. He has been a vet for 25 years. He's part of the board of the German Equestrian Veterinary Association, so GEVA. Together, the 5 of them, 3 professors, 3 university professors, and 2 private vets, they created the catalog of X-rays to be used in pre-purchase vetting. So if with regards to vetting and pre-purchase vetting, he really is the guru, and we're very fortunate to have him here tonight. I don't know how many X-rays he's seen in his life of horses, but I think if anyone can look at an X-ray and immediately make a finding, I think Dr. Brunken is probably the guy to go to. So very welcome to you, Dr. Brunken, and thank you for being here. So Dr. Brunken, can you quickly just tell us about your background and your life with horses, and which part of the equine veterinary science you enjoy the most?
So I lived with horses my whole life. So I started with a small Shetland pony, and later, so when I was 14, 15, my father brought me to the racetrack, and I was an amateur jockey for 2 or 3 years. And then I started my career as a rider for warmbloods. And I started first with dressage, and then 3-day eventing, and then later show jumping up to international class. So I won 2 Nations Cups, and I was 12th in the Hamburg Derby. My teacher was Achatz von Buchwald. He was a winner of the Derby 2 times. So I had a good teacher and a little bit talent. But when studies started, I had to stop riding because my father didn't want to pay a horse at that place in Munich and Hanover where I studied. So I had to do my job as a veterinarian, and riding was just for fun. And but 97, I was not 15 years on a horse. A good friend of mine and client, Hilmar Meyer, I think he's a well-known horse dealer in South Africa. He rented me a horse, and I was European champion of the veterinarians in show jumping. So I rode the horse 3 times, and then I won this European champion, but it was a wonderful horse. Okay, and then after studies, I went 2 years to the US, working as a vet in the United States, first on a racetrack, but after 6 weeks, I had it was enough. All this schedule doping. You know, the horses had to get drugs at a time to be no bleeder. Everything would help the horse run faster. And that was not my job as a veterinarian. Then I was in the New Bolton Center, learned a lot of ultrasound with Virginia Reeve. And then I went to Denver, Colorado, a little large animal clinic. And I was 1.5 years with Dr. Beeman. That was a wonderful time. We hunted coyotes in the desert every morning with foxhounds. It was good. It was really great, and it's a rough country. So the horse had to be born there, and otherwise lifetime would be very short.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can imagine. It's a bit like our Namibian horses.
Yeah, and so that's not a life for a warm blood. They need the ground, grass or sand. Most best is even and not too slippery and not too stony. And yeah, and then I was a veterinarian for the Hanoverian Society as an auction vet. At that time, I did about 2,000 pre-purchase a year. And I stopped that job at 2012. And in 2013, I started to be auction vet for the Holsteins and the Trakehner's. But next to that, I also was always a private veterinarian, so I had my private client. I look for the horses of Meredith Michaels Beerbaum since nearly 20 years now. And that was, but later we will come to this role as a vet in such a team, to be a successful team.
Yes, yes. I think, yeah, why don't we carry on to that? So what is your opinion? Where does the vet fit into this role between the coach and the rider and the team, the whole competition thing in a modern competitive environment?
Yeah. So a rider feels how his horse he knows is. After a show, he says, he's stiff or he's a little lame, or to the right side, I cannot ride as he usually goes. This is then the job of a vet starts. And I teach all my clients that they should look at their horses or call me and I look at the horses always 1 or 2 days after show to see if there's any difference as before. So if a horse is not sound after a show, stop the horse, give him time for 2 or 3 days, then look again. If the horse is okay, then start normal training again. But if the horse is not good, call the vet.
Okay, thank you. So it's you're very much almost like on a you available at a daily basis, basically for these top riders.
Yes.
Okay, now if we go up the competitive ladder, what is the role of the team vet in Nations Cups and maybe the Olympic Games and that kind of thing? So where would the team vet fit in? What is his role? Why do we have one?
The role of a team vet is to see things other non-experts doesn't see. So he has to be, if he is a very successful team vet, then he knows his horses which are competing in his team. There's a lot of traveling. You have to go through the country, look every month on the horses, and then you know how the horses are and how not each horse is 100% sound, but manageable. And so he has to know or to see the horses before the shows and also after the shows. And on the competition, every morning he has to look at the horses to see how the horse is going. And if the horse is not as he thought, he has to stop the horse. And sometimes very hard for the rider and for the whole team to stop a horse. But it's his decision, and that's the role of a team vet.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think it's quite an important thing because of also all the repercussions that can come from if something goes wrong, someone is to blame for it. And yeah, if the vet didn't do his job there, then it could easily he become the scapegoat for all of this. Now let's just veer off this whole comparative thing for a little bit. If we talk about pre-purchase exams, now we as coaches are very often asked to either find horses or give our opinion on a suitable horse for one of our athletes. And of course, I'm sure there's not a single coach out there who would go, no, don't send the horse for a vetting. You know, we all need to know kind of what's happening with this horse, and we need the real professionals to give us some of advice. Dr. Brunken, can you please maybe just talk us quickly through a typical pre-purchase exam? What is expected and how do you do it?
How to say, it's first there's the contact to the prospective buyer should be mostly on written things. So I tell everybody, send me an email with the details you want. So the clinical examination is mostly always the same, it's standard. But you know, each buyer has other things what he needs. They had bad experience with suspensories, so they want an ultrasound in the pre-purchase. Others, they have problems with kissing spines or neck problems, so they want also x-rays of the vertebra. But standard in Germany are 18 views, so that's a navicular shot, 2 views of the front foot from the side, 1 of the hind ankles from the side, 3 views of the hocks, and 2 views of each stifle. That's the standard. But you have to discuss with the prospective buyer if they want less or they want more or they want the standard. That's the normal way you do that. And then when you come to the stable, you look a little bit around and then you see the horse. And firstly, a little bit distance from the horse to go around, see how the horse is, the conformation. And then you go to palpate the whole horse, and then you do the heart, and the eyes, and the lungs. Try coughing, look at the veins if they are the thrombosis or something like that. A little bit look for scars, maybe colic surgery or nerving or whatever. And then what I also look special is the form of the hoof. So if they have a straight wall or in-rolled hoof wall inside or outside, different feet, one straighter, one or clubfoot, or signs of what is this? The word is laminitis. Yeah, you mostly you can see it from outside. And if there are things which are what I would not let through a vetting, I stop the vetting at that time or that moment, or discuss that with the buyer. Mostly they are not together with me at the place, so I phone them. So that's always also the reason, because I want the contact first, the contact data, so the phone number and the address, everything. Best is also a credit card to see that I get the money later.
Very important. Yeah. Okay, so if there's certain set standards for you, if something is not right, then the vetting stops there and you don't even carry on further. Now,
yeah.
If we talk a little bit about, I don't want to say fashion or trends, but I remember from when I was a while ago when I was much younger, the flexion test was the beginning and end all of it. Now there seems to be less worry about the flexion test, but more important now, the bone chips. And then the bone chips went out of kind of fashion a little bit, and then it's the kissing spine, and then kissing spine x-rays, when people are saying, no, you can help that now a little bit. Now it's the pole and the neck that's been x-rayed a lot. So we seem to go through these trends and what is important. How do you feel about it? Is there a trend at the moment? Is there things that are out of fashion or is proven to not be so important as we think they are? What is your opinion?
The German standard was always a little bit less than international standard. So I remember 25 years ago, if there came a client from United States, they wanted x-rays we never heard from, on skylines and oblique views and everything. So normally we took 12 views at that time and nothing more. But we had to learn, because the clients, they want that. And but especially the trend is in the moment neck and back. That's the most thing we do more than our standard. The standard is always 18 views from the legs, but the neck and the back is nearly in every second pre-purchase examination involved. And it's very astonishing, because I think that's a thing coming from Dr. Google. You know Dr.
Yeah,
Google?
Dr. Google is very important. Yes, we all know Dr. Google.
So I did a science paper, I think in 2005, to see how common is a finding in the back in a horse. And we x-rayed nearly 1,000 horses, which were not ridden, so 2-year-old horses, and they were not selected. And so, and we found, I think, in more than 70% nearing or contact or overriding, so kissing spines syndrome findings. And then we followed up these horses, and I think nearly 90% had this finding had no influence on the performance of the horse. And then we had another science paper, so horses which were shown to me because of riding problems. So when the horse were groomed, so they were sensitive in the back, or when the rider wants to sit on the knees, or on the riding, the bucking or whatever, all this, which is people think has to do something with the back. But the findings in these horses were the same than in this 2-year-olds. So we did not see that more horses of this riding problems shown, or horses which show problems have worse or more findings in this region. So, and then were a lot of science papers from universities and well-known vets were done, and nobody could really find a risk for this finding. Yeah, so and in the catalog of our X-rays from 2007, we had that in our catalog. So, and was classified from 1 to 4, and but in the new one from 2018, we took that out because in all these science papers, there was not seen a real risk for that. So because a lot of horses which have really visible, not nice findings, they compete super, Olympics and Grand Prix, everything, and horses which have no findings have back pain. So we took that out of the catalog, and I tell the people if they want to do that, or I have to do that for the people, and they ask me, you can tell me if there's a risk. I tell them no, I can't tell you the findings, but the risks for the future, nobody knows.
Nobody knows, yes.
Nobody knows.
So Dr. Brunken, it seems to me that there's 2 ways to look at this pre-purchase vetting. There's something that the client wants to be done, and then there's something that the vet wants to have done to make sure that he's covered. So if you're now a little bit in between the two, so imagine you, Dr. Brunken, the great vet, also wants to go and buy a horse maybe for a family member that wants to maybe go and show jump at a high level. What is the typical vetting things that you would then ask the other vet to do?
I would wants to have the standard views, and only if there's a finding you don't know really, special views of this area.
Okay. And then is there a difference between eventing versus dressage versus jumping versus endurance maybe? Would you do it different, or is that a standard thing? Every horse must pass that?
Yeah, I would say, okay, when you we are talking on different riding, different way of riding. So dressage horse and jumpers, for me, it's always all the same. In endurance horses and 3-day eventers, I don't like bone chips, or because they have run a long distance, and every day at least 3 hours on their legs to be hard enough for that competition. And I think every chip will make an arthrosis, but most horses doesn't live long enough to get that. Yeah. Okay. So, and we see bone chips in, I think, 30% of fetlocks, 5% on the coffin joints, 15% in the hocks, 5% in the stifles, which is very, a finding we classify, or we say it's a risk, is bone cysts. Yeah, it depends a little bit where they are, but most horses with a cyst are very hard to sell. Okay. Our farmers here, when they breed horses, they let them exam as a 2-year-old, and if there are chips which can be removed because just for cosmetics, so just for getting a better price, when they want to sell the horse, they send them to a clinic to do an arthroscopy to let them taken out. Huh? Most chips I saw was 15 chips in 8 joints in one horse. They were surgered, and it was done surgery in 2 sessions, and the surgeon did a super job, and the horse was sold, I think, 1.5 years later for 80,000 Deutsche marks. So it's a little bit longer ago, but that was successful. So but most farmers, they won't pay that price for this surgery, so they will sell to a dealer for small money, and they find always people who love the horse. But it's not said that these chips will make a lameness. Nobody knows that. If the horse is clinically okay, no joint effusion, no fluid in it, or the flexions are fine, everything, the horse can compete normal.
How often do you see horses that flex lame, but then when you search for it, you don't find anything? Is it possible, or are we?
When I came to the US, you have to know, I learned here a little bit in Germany, and so in a lame horse, you do a flexion test. Then I came on the racetrack and saw a lame racehorse, and wanted to find out what the horse's problem is, and did a flexion test. And everybody said, "Hey, what is this guy doing? Flex thoroughbred? It makes no sense, because they are all positive." And that's true. So flexion test is an advice that there is something not 100% normal, but it's not a thing you say it's don't buy that horse. But my opinion is, when I see a horse which is really so visible, really positive on flexion, I call these guys who want to buy the horse and tell them that, and then we decide to do pre-purchase examination 2 or 3 weeks later. Yeah, so to see if this is just a moment, yeah, because the horse, mostly when these people wants to buy the horse, they try them, and mostly not one time, mostly 2-3 days after another, and high jumps or dressage and a thing on a level the horse sometimes is not used to do, and so maybe it's an acute thing. So nobody can say that if you don't see anything from outside. And most horses are better or okay in this time of 14 days, 3 weeks.
Okay, so what is your most common finding if you do your pre-purchase vetting exam? Where do horses, I don't want to say fail, but where are the biggest problems that you regularly see?
The problems, yeah, clinically, heart murmurs. I don't know why, but I've never seen a horse dying by a heart. I don't know the English word, but humans often have
a heart attack or a
attack. Yeah, only racehorses or very hard-working horses get this rupture of the aorta or something like that. That's a thing, but you cannot see that or find that in a pre-purchase examination. That's a sudden death, and that's it. But that has nothing to do with this heart murmurs. But I know that it's very hard to sell a horse with a heart murmur. What we see also and clinically is the Uvitis, so the internal eye disease.
Yes.
But in the last times, they have, or in the last years, we have a good surgery result, so that horses with these problems, they can compete their whole life without any problem. So when they get this surgery, on the clinical examination, it's if we have OCD in a hock with a very big fragment, which is mostly not one piece, that's more than one, and so there's a risk, and you can mostly see it from outside. The joint is not dry; it's always wind goals. Also, the stifles, if they have OCD in the stifle for sport, not good. And the cystic lesions in the stifle are not okay. And also in the front legs, in the coffin joint or coffin bone in the P2 or P3. That's because it's not manageable. You don't know how to deal with that. Yeah, yes. If they're slightly finding spavin, that's a manageable thing. Most horses compete their whole life. My best client, and I think one of the most winning horses, 7 million euros in his life, was Shutterfly. And he had a bone cyst in the P3 and spavin on both hocks.
Sure.
Yeah. And he won the Grand Prix of Europe in Aachen with 19 years. And it looks like a Class A steel jumper.
Yeah. Goodness.
Yeah. So some horses, they tolerate their diseases or their findings. Some do not. It's very hard as a vet to say this horse is good and will compete the whole life. And so the pre-purchase examination is just an examination at that day when you see the horse. And I don't know really persons who have they can, you don't know the future.
Yes,
yeah?
For sure.
If you say this chip will never make problems, it will.
Okay, Dr. Brunken, how often do you see a horse with a real Class A vetting, that everything is clean and where you just say, wow, great?
Maybe 10% of all. So it's not that you don't see it. So there are a lot of horses which don't have any findings. But when you look at the horse, the conformation is not okay. Don't buy that horse. Okay. Yeah, if they are straight in the hock and weak in the ankles and the hind legs, it will get worse in the life. And then they have suspensory problems later. So X-rays are just, you cannot write on X-rays. You have to see the whole horse.
Okay, yeah. So what I want to, I think this whole thing is leading us to a little bit is that, I mean, you guys, you vets, you study very hard and you spend many years crafting and working at your craft and becoming a real professional at this. So we as coaches, you know, I think we can listen to what you have to say. It's a very important part of the whole process, not only pre-purchase vetting, but also in the day-to-day running of this thing. Is there anything in the industry at the moment that you're not happy with? What is your opinion? Is it something you want to change? If you had the power to change things or keep it the same, talk to us a little bit.
The way, you know, in former times, it was like the breeder went with his mare to the stallion, and there was a nature coming together, and then there was a foal. Yeah, but now the semen is sent through the whole world. I have my own a Trakehner mare. The father is the Leonidas, and he is the Grand Prix Dressage Trakehner for sure in United States. And the mother is by Biotope, and Biotope was the dressage stallion from Dr. Klimke. very successful. And this mare is a very nice mare, but my wife likes gray ones. And in a Trakehner breeding program, you find less gray ones. So we had to go to Netherlands to buy this horse. You see, that's, yeah, the way, but that's now good. So I think the horse industry is international, and that is a nice thing. But the normal way of breeding goes down. So these normal farmers, it's very hard to find them.
Okay, yeah, the ones with the real passion and the knowledge.
Yeah, the knowledge is going a little bit away. So these old breeders who really know how a horse, or which horse is good for, or which stallion is good for his mare, it goes down. It comes less and less. And so only people with money, they think Totilas is good for their mare, yeah, because he's 8,000 euros decked the tax, or the price for
cover fee, yes.
Yeah, cover fees. And I from that stallion, I saw maybe 10 very good horses, and all the others are too small, or yeah, whatever, not useful, not a very good horse. And there are other stallions which are much better, yeah, and cheaper for the cover fee.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, like you say, with this breeding, that it's similar with you. You know, the people with the real passion and all the years of knowledge and experience behind them, they are a little bit in the background, and you have the people who can afford it to throw money at a problem, and hopefully they can fix it.
I don't know if you know the high breeding area that's about near the River Elbe, near Hamburg. And there was one road from Stade to Freiburg, and there were 26 breeding farms, and now we have 3. Yeah, so
that's just going
area.
Yeah, it's just going fewer and fewer breeders around now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Brunken. That was
the number of mares is not going down. So we have 18,000 bred mares in Hanover in the moment.
There are still lots of horses being bred, but not necessarily the same amount of good quality stock.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Brunken, thank you. That was very insightful. Thank you very much for the time. We've got a couple of questions already from the people here. So I'm just going to read them to you, and maybe if you can answer them for us. We have one here. Here in South Africa, a machine is used called a lameness locator. What is your opinion on the effectiveness of this machine?
I saw that in the United States 20 years ago or 25 years ago. Okay, the modern technique, maybe it's better now, more computerized, and but for me, is as a good vet, I see is a horse lame or not lame. I can see that, and as a rider, I can feel it. I don't need a machine for that. If you need a machine to find out if a horse is lame, that's the wrong way. Because if you know yourself, you are sometimes a little bit stiff, and then you don't walk straight. So if you have to walk in the dark, you will run around the corner and always left or right round. Yeah, so it's because one leg is a little bit smaller or shorter, or so, and that's also in horses. And the horse, every horse you can find slightly, not a real lameness, but not the movement is not even.
Yes. Yes. So, like you say, so maybe those machines is really for if I'm a top athlete and I really want to bring my performance to a higher level, that you use then those specialist machines to see where the problem is. But for your normal pre-purchase vetting, that's maybe overkill.
Yes, it's the same if you put a horse in the MRI for a pre-purchase. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Right, then another question here. It's an X-ray question. How significant is a lollipop on a navicular bone?
Depends on the rest of the navicular. If there are other findings, so the shape or the structure of this bone is not normal, and there are more than one lollipop-like channel, then it's significant.
Okay, so one you would be okay with, but more than one a problem.
It depends a little bit how big is a lollipop. Small lollipop, or it's a really one. So it's a channel which starts very small, and then you have a real round bubble. Then it's mostly significant. But I always want to see also a skyline view of this leg, so a second view to see if the border to the flexor tendon is normal. Because some horses, they show these problems with the bursitis, so the bursa of this tendon is inflamed, or that's horses, which is very common in jumpers, have coffin joint problems. So, and if the pressure in the coffin joint is higher, then you get this deformed channels.
Yes. Okay, please, if there's anyone with more questions, please feel free, put it in the chat room, and then we can ask Dr. Brunken. We've got another question here. Supplements. What is the role of supplements in keeping the horse sound? Is there anything that you suggest that actually help? How do we know which supplements to use? Is it all just a scam? What is your opinion?
So supplements, you know, when you buy food for horses, there's always vitamins and minerals already in this food. And all what the horse doesn't need, it comes out in the hind.
Okay.
The most supplements are good for the people who sells it. The only thing when you breed horses and raise them so foals from birth to 3-year-old horses or 4-year-old horses, then you have to look for the calcium. So, and it's very easy to feed that just single, this calcium, because the calcium and the phosphor, it's mostly it's too much phosphor in the food, and then you have problems. So if you have to give more calcium, but all the vitamins mostly are, the horse produces itself. So vitamin C makes no sense because the horse makes it by itself. Yeah.
I think the best thing would be for scientific if something works. So maybe there, Dr. Google can help you to find the actual journal where it's published in. But apart from that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So, and one is that horses which does not get too much power food in when they are very young, so they raise them very hungry. We call them hungry horses.